Welcome to The Insiders by Durham Lane, an industry podcast that connects the worlds of marketing and sales one guest at a time. I'm your host, Richard Lane. I'm co-founder and chief commercial officer of Durham Lane. And today, I'm really thrilled to be joined by André Storvogel, head of marketing at Workwize. André, firstly, it's great to have you on the show. Thanks for being with us. And before we get into the topic today, which is all around, I think we've titled it Signals over Spreadsheets, Building Smarter Sales Pipelines at Workwize, which quite a big mouthful, but a really interesting topic. Before we get into that, then you could maybe just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and a bit about Workwize to get us started.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation. Glad to be here. My name is André. I have about 20 years of experience working as a kind of a head of marketing at different startups, and my sweet spot has always been in the scale-up phase, where the product market fit has been established, and helping to go from zero to one. I kind of enjoy this phase also because it's just a stage of the company where before it gets too political, too much bureaucracy. Every time I do it again, I learn new things and I apply things quicker. In the latest company I now work for, there's been, of course, the whole AI evolution that's changing the marketing rules once again.
Yeah, have you just on that, André? And it's interesting what you say about sort of really enjoying that startup phase. Does it get to a certain number of people and you think it's time for something different, or when does the politics kick in? Is there a moment for that you can sort of think back to?
Yeah, also in my experience, mostly the startup got acquired, and I kind of missed how it would continue otherwise. But then when you get acquired, that's really, you get to a very different culture very fast, because you adopt the culture of the mother company. Yes. And things really change from there. But I'd say I think like 150 people. I'd say to if I would guess, that's kind of the number where things really start changing.
But really the trigger, and we'll talk about trigger events later. But the trigger is the company gets acquired, and you start thinking it's time for something different. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So focusing in on Workwize then, André, you've really shifted that organization from going from sort of 5% inbound to 85% inbound. So I guess firstly, it'd be good to know what helped you achieve that seismic shift. And then I suppose second question is, everyone's talking about inbound being dead. So, has that shift been the right thing, or, where is it? What's happened the last 12 months, for example?
Yeah. So I think there are two main components, and maybe I can first tell you a little bit more about Workwize. So Workwize sells a solution to IT managers who have distributed teams all around the world and need to get laptops to these teams, but more importantly also need to retrieve them when employees leave or when the laptop is end of life. And so we kind of have built out a warehousing network around the world, a supplier network, and also a bit of software on top to kind of all put it together. And I think the unique kind of thing about this is that it's not a pure software play. And you see in this age of AI, a lot of solutions getting replaced. But I think that's the beauty of Workwize, is that the physical warehouses is something that's hard to replicate with AI. And so when I joined the company, we were really focused on HR managers, and the selling point was on giving your remote employees a nice onboarding experience. But I think that was more of a nice to have. And when I joined, we actually quickly then pivoted to the IT manager, because they were also on these calls, and they said, we really need those laptops back, when people depart. And so I think the first component of scaling inbound was, getting the product market fit right, and really understanding the pain points, and really doing that, that research of your ICP. So does what you sell, does it resonate with your market? So I think step one was really rewriting the whole website towards that IT manager. The second part was really about if you look at the market, they say that in any given moment, 5% of the market is in market. They are now shopping for a solution. And so what you see a lot of companies do when they start marketing, they start with brand awareness campaigns or sponsorship, a lot of top funnel initiatives targeting people that are not in market.
Yes.
And what I wanted to do is I wanted to do a bottom up approach where you identify the ones that are shopping around, and you convert them. And as that's the quickest way to revenue, then you can scale your program further because you can justify, because of the conversion rates. So we started out on channels like Google Ads, where through keyword research you can very quickly and easily identify what are the commercial keywords, what are those money keywords that people with a buying intent would use. So that was kind of the initial success on Google Ads, and in parallel, we started with our organic strategy. So, writing blogs, getting those ranked, but that's a much bit of a more long-term strategy. But as we were closing deals through Google Ads, by that time, the organic side had picked up, and we would, you use also keywords like competitor alternatives, because that's also a buying keyword.
Yes.
And also for people that are not aware of your brand, they might be aware of other vendors, and that's how you enter, when you get into the picture, when you associate yourselves with other companies. So yeah, it was really twofold. This, getting that product market fit right, understanding the pain points, using that on your website. And the other bit was starting with the bottom of the funnel, and then slowly moving up, because as you close more deals, you get more confidence from the management team to kind of grow the budget. And it really went from there.
So like anything in life, really, Andre, it's never one thing. It's a mixture. It's a mixture of different things happening together. I think just something really interesting that you mentioned there was that you were selling to HR, IT were also on the phone, but your team were probably sort of ignoring those people and focusing on the HR people who had a nice to have need, whereas the IT people had a tangible, money orientated or return on investment backed need. So what a simple pivot, but so impactful.
Yeah, and I think the most successful businesses, they become big after such a pivot, which seems small at the time, but it was the aha moment, really, that went from there. Yeah.
And how do your team balance that sort of blend of inbound and outbound? So I presume you've got I presume you've got a sales team going out into market using some of these signals and triggers, and then you've got inbound coming to you. You've obviously done a lot of work on the ICP and the inbound piece, but are your team still going out to on a sort of account-based selling motion as well?
Yeah, so as we grew with inbound, I guess the outbound side stayed a little bit flat, and I think we were still kind of looking for the strategy for that. And kind of quite recently, I've also kind of taken ownership of the BDR side, and in hindsight, that's actually has been a great move, because there's things happening on the marketing side and there are things happening on the BDR side, but they don't really talk, a lot to each other. But now that you're part of the same team, you have the same KPIs, then that information flow is much better. So let me give you an example. Accounts visiting our website or accounts engaging with our LinkedIn ads. This is information we used to see all the time, but didn't really know what to do now. But now we kind of send these accounts through kind of an AI workflow to do an ICP check, and then we send them to the BDRs as a calling task. And that's really a great partnership there, where we kind of where we collect all these buyer intent signals and we send them on to the BDRs. And we've seen a much higher meeting booked rate than before, where before we were really dependent on pure cold outreach, and we've really shifted to more warm outreach now.
Right. Excellent. So Yeah, I mean that's interesting. So, in term, just thinking back to that decision making process of the BDRs coming under your remit of marketing, was that something you had to fight for? Was it an easy win? Was there, did you have to go out and make the case for why that is a good thing, or was the organization ready to accept that? I'm just interested to know, because I suppose at Durham Lane we provide outsourced BDR services, and I often say that we're the middleware that connects marketing and sales together.
Yeah.
Now it sounds like your marketing brief has extended into that BDR world and that's working, but did you have to persuade people to give that a go, or was it let's go for it?
Yeah, I think the hardest convincing was for the BDR themselves, because if you think about it, most BDRs have a career trajectory that goes from BDR to account executive. So if you marry the
Yes.
BDR and AE team together, it's like, yeah, it's a great
Yeah.
career path. But I don't think that needs to change. Like if you report into marketing, you can still excel in as a sales individual, and our BDR team lead still has these coaching programs to get people ready into an AE role. So I don't think there's any opportunity lost, and I think they still have the same career chances. Maybe even better, because now they get to book more meetings,
Yeah.
because they have the intelligence at their fingertips.
Yeah, and let's spend a bit of time on the sort of signals and AI in that BDR world, because yeah, you've given a really good example there of very top of funnel in terms of advertising and making sure you're seen when people are searching on your competitors, but then also with the IT directors having a really a problem that needs solving. Before we came on air, we were talking about GTM engineers and the rise of this role. So perhaps you could tell us a little bit about the success you're having from the use of AI point of view in helping identify those signals and create the reason for the BDR to make that warm call.
Yeah. So if you think about the traditional BDR role, there's quite some time reserved for researching accounts, making sure they're within your ICP, like looking up phone numbers, looking up email addresses. And I think that's the bit that AI can now really replace for you. So they can do all of that research on the background if you have those kind of agents kind of lined up, and have some kind of workflow that, if they are ICP, then the next step is search for the phone number, search for the email address,
Yeah.
and also the job title. And so that saves a lot of time, and it gives the BDR more time to focus on how is my pitch, how is my kind of more on the last 20% that's needed to get someone get a meeting booked. But I also see other organizations that really go too far in this AI a bit. So they completely write the emails with AI. They send the emails with AI. Some, these days you also have AI dialers. And
Yes.
I think what really will work in the end is kind of this hybrid approach where, it's the 80% of AI research, but it's the last mile, the last 20%
Yeah.
where the BDR takes all that information, looks at the account, and then does a multi-channel orchestration. Like, what is the best way to kind of approach this account? And so the role of this GTM engineer, and it's a relatively new role. I think it's been coined by Clay.
Yes.
Is to kind of find these kind of do the enrichment of your cold contacts and make sure that they're within your ICP. But I think more importantly is start recognizing the signals online that are being given by the potential buyers. And I pointed out, website people on your website, if they go to your pricing page, or if they go to the solution page multiple times, and there are certain signals there that you can actually put them in the workflow and reach out to them and see if it's worth having a further conversation. And I also talked about LinkedIn intent, so people engaging with your ads. But we've also been quite successful in social selling. So our CEO, posting accounts, posting posts on LinkedIn. We would then sponsor these posts so it'll get a wider audience.
Yeah.
And we've seen great success of people, engaging with these posts and kind of following up with them and kind of getting quite some meetings booked.
Excellent.
But next to intent signals, you could also look at trigger events. So in our case, if there's been a new funding round, or if the IT manager has recently joined, or if the company had a big layoff recently, they need to retrieve a lot of laptops. These are all great trigger events to, that's the right time to get in touch with our audience. And I
Yeah,
think,
it's interesting, isn't it? Because throughout my entire sales career, I've used trigger events. It's just a key part of our selling at high level methodology is all around business fit and business value. So it's just what I've always done in my corporate career, and then we've done as Durham Lane. I think the difference now is the ability to automate the identification of those trigger events and then pull them through. Um, do you serve this up as a sort of CRM task to your BDRs, or are they quite actively involved in how it works behind the scenes? Do you have them? Are they just focused on my next call and why, or do they engage? I guess I'm just trying to understand how engaged they are in terms of getting the right tech to work for them.
yeah, so it's a good question. So right now, indeed, they are just kind of CRM tasks, and if they use a
Yeah.
power dialer, when someone picks up, they get to see, the bullet points for that
Right.
account. So
Yeah. Yeah.
recently had a funding round. They have offices in Mexico and Canada. They've hired 50 people, remotely, and those are kind of the talking points then for in the call. But
Yeah.
yeah, so indeed, it's being made really easy for the BDRs to do kind of a lot of calls. But I do think where we can benefit more from is if they do a little bit of more research, because in the end it's all automated, right? And they just need to kind of fact check that we don't end up kind of calling competitors, for example.
Yeah, and that's where it's so critical that you have thoughtful. We talk about thoughtful prospecting. So, actually, this is why I'm calling, but this is the wider context as well. And I guess, one thing that you mentioned before, which I think is really important, is the over automation. We've got to be really careful not to over automate. Because if
Yeah.
people are just dialing, then you're sort of going back to a dialing for dollars, but with a bit more purpose. And actually, what we need is to, I always think the bar hopefully is continually getting higher. And I think AI with its capabilities and speed is it's allowing us to be more informed than ever, which means you can't afford not to be informed. It becomes the new baseline. So we'll still need people that can build rapport, ask great questions, learn and understand and be relevant, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And I think in this day of age, that's if everybody's on the AI bandwagon, that's how you can differentiate yourself as an organization, where you actually sound human, which
Yes.
is
Yeah.
going out of fashion really,
Out of
really
fashion,
fast
yeah.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, and do you think that, I mean, I think there's a recognition that technology is really helping us to be more informed, more rapidly. Um, just going back to that sort of go-to-market engineer type role, do you see that sitting in sales operations? Is it a role that goes across the business? How do you see that working? I mean, how are you thinking about that in Workwise?
Yeah, I think it's a role that sits, I guess, slightly closer to marketing, because because of the signals that are out there, and it's channels that marketing already touches. So social media channels, website channels, but also things like Yeah, those kind of trigger events, which kind of marketing also looks at. So for us, yeah, it makes more sense to be more involved in marketing, although the day-to-day stakeholders are the BDRs, right? So
Right.
I guess that's something we haven't really figured out ourselves, but I guess our advantage is that we now have marketing and BDR as one team. So it's kind of it would sit, I guess, more on the BDR side.
Yeah, that's probably true. I think at Durham Lane we created a RevOps group, so we've got sales, marketing, account management all together. So and sales operations. For us, I think I mean, our business is more complicated because we've got sort of 30 plus clients, all with different messaging, all with different solutions. So,
Yeah.
and we definitely couldn't afford to have a go-to-market engineer for every one of them. But actually, how do we get those individuals or how do we get that team creating the best practices that work in most situations, and then you can tailor, I guess 80/20 rule, you can tailor the rest to make it as best fit as possible. But I think it'll be a really interesting role that comes through, and it's sort of a development of a sales ops, rev ops type role, isn't it? In terms of, but it links so clearly into data as well. And I still think data is the big thing that people don't want to talk about because most companies' data is pretty awful. Um,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
how I sort of feel you have to sort that out first and then you can do the rest.
Yeah, exactly. And I think on one hand there is a big advantage if you consolidate all that data on one platform. So, for example, we use HubSpot for marketing
Okay.
automation and our CRM, but also our website runs on it. So I think it's great. And our customer success team also uses it. So that is great. But what I see on the BDR side is that I haven't found kind of one platform that does it all very great. So cold emailing with high deliverability rates, cold calling with high quality phone numbers, or a LinkedIn automation tool that can do it
Yeah.
all. So what we tend to do there is use the kind of a best of breed solution and then tie them together. So I think there's something to be said for everything. So it's nice if the data lives on one platform, but if the functionality is subpar, and especially, for example, for cold emailing, if you don't have a great email tool, like it will really hurt the conversion
Yes.
rate.
Yeah, absolutely. So and this is sort of one of the challenges. It'd be interesting to get your thoughts. You've obviously been in lots of scale ups, Andre, and I suppose the sort of tendency to buy lots and lots of tech is prolific. How have you? I'll change the question. Have you spent lots of time persuading people not to buy tech, or buy too much tech? Do you try and keep your tech stack as tight as you can, or what have you found works best there in the businesses you've been in?
Yeah, so what I do see is that as new people join the business, I guess an easy win for them and a logical thinking is like, right, let's reset that tech stack. I'm gonna bring the tools that I brought from my organization,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's yeah, something we need to be aware of, because sometimes the existing tools work just fine, but I think overall, I think it's good to be very open-minded on testing new tools. Every week, there are new tools out there that could
Yeah.
maybe do it quicker, and so
Every
it's very
day. Every
yeah.
day. Yeah.
So it's important to kind of plug and unplug tools that can do it cheaper or do it faster, and it's good to have that agile
Yeah.
mindset. So I would not be. I think a few years ago I was like, yeah, I prefer just to use HubSpot and just nothing else. But the truth is that some components just do it much better than HubSpot. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's just the reality.
Yeah. Well, I think there's and it's a narrow path to tread in terms of what tech you use. I think the whole licensing thing is going to have to change as well because, I can't imagine signing up to a 2 year deal with any tech company at the moment because, things
No,
are changing. Things are changing so fast that that doesn't really make business sense.
no.
Talking about change and things changing fast, we've got a couple of questions which I think are probably podcasts in their own right, Andre, but just to maybe as we sort of come to the end of our chat today, in terms of looking ahead, what do you see changing most in B2B marketing and sales over the next year? I will appreciate that's a really tough question.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, well, I think social selling, it's going to be very important. So I think people will be less responsive to ads, but if you
Okay.
sponsor, you know, good stories that offer value, people will stop scrolling and read that and might start to follow you. And that's what we're seeing is working.
And when you say social selling, are you meaning LinkedIn or are
Yeah,
you?
yeah, yeah. In,
Yeah.
in our case, indeed, that's LinkedIn. And the other bit, of course, is well, I guess on the marketing side is where historically you've been dependent on traffic from Google. Well, now a lot of people they ask their questions on an LLM like ChatGPT, and so we need the whole marketing industry needs to become good at how do I get quoted by ChatGPT as the answer. And I
Yes.
think that I've seen the other day that ChatGPT, so OpenAI, is recruiting for some kind of like an advertising manager role, hinting that they're probably going to introduce a paid model. So if you
All right.
ask for what is the best vendor for that, then you can kind of get a sponsored listing. So the day that happens, I think a large portion of our budget from traditional ad channels will move
Yeah,
to
that's
these.
that's that's really interesting. It would be, I guess it will be a shame if that happened. I expect it will happen, but actually, the we've been very lucky actually because we've been getting found on ChatGPT, which is great.
Yeah,
But if that becomes sort of a paid for service, then you lose some of that integrity over it. I mean, it will. I can imagine it will happen, but
yeah,
yeah, interesting. I hadn't heard that, but that's an interesting development. Yeah. And
yeah.
then final question then, Andre, just to finish this up for this episode of The Insiders. If you're advising another marketing leader starting on the journey, what's the one thing they should focus on first?
Yeah, it's I think something that I mentioned earlier in this call, and it's really start at the bottom of the funnel. So look out for the
ICP, was that going to be ICP? Was that the one?
well, I think also at the top of the funnel, people are in your ICP, but it's more like people that are, for example, if you look at the television market, right? Like you and I would both be part of the target market, but we're not particularly looking now for a new TV. But there is a segment out there that's looking now, so they
Oh, so
look
the
for.
the 5%.
Yeah, exactly, the 5%.
Yeah.
So becoming really good at recognizing who is that 5% and where do they shop or where do they go to ask for questions. So in our case, Reddit, and a lot of IT managers go there. And so yeah, that's what I would advise, because then you have your initial successes that will lead to more revenue, and then you can advocate for bigger budgets, more people on your
Yeah.
team, because the road from a sponsorship to or brand awareness campaign to a sign deal, that's a very long road. It will take a lot of time, and it's very difficult to explain to your management team that marketing is generating revenue, whereas going after the 5% first, that
Yeah.
is a much easier case.
So are there some, so I mean that's a great point. So you've obviously got your ICP and all that bit, but in terms of the 5%, what might one do then to identify that 5%? I mean, it'll be different for every company, but are there certain questions that you should be asking yourself?
Yeah, so I guess like I mentioned, is like do the keyword research. So in your domain, look for what are commercial intent keywords. So if in anything with the word vendor or supplier, or alternatives to existing solutions, these are all indications that they're shopping around. And if you have Google Ads on that, that will be day one. You can start getting demos in. So that
Yeah.
that's where I would start. But of course, in every industry, that's slightly different.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, well, I think there's Loads of value in this conversation, André. So thank you so much for being with us. I think from the thinking about the 5% to thinking about the signals and the data that we use, the go-to-market expertise that we need to make sure we have to give our people the best chance of being successful, and then that whole link between sales and marketing. I think we've sort of told that story in about 30 minutes. So that's excellent. So thank you very much for being with us. Much appreciated.
Yeah, it was my pleasure.
And thanks everyone for listening as always. Really appreciate you joining us on The Insiders. I'm Richard Lane. I've been your host. If you'd like to hear more from us, then please find us on your favorite podcast sites such as Spotify and all of the others. And if you'd like to know more about Durham Lane, then you can see how we're more than just SDR outsourcing at durhamlane.com. And until next time, see you soon. Thank you.